Good evening, listeners. Welcome back to a TNHU discussion vlog. And tonight, I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about my experiences with MonHun Stories for the 3DS. So, I do apologize. I was under the weather for a couple weeks here. As you guys know from my Cuphead video, my voice is sounding a lot better tonight. And I also do want to apologize that I'm only able to give you guys Cuphead and MonHun Stories this week. I did come across a family emergency this weekend, and so I have to go ahead and push back the looking ahead vlog rather, to next week. I do want to prepare something special for you guys. I just want to showcase the cool stuff I've accumulated for my Nintendo Switch, and I'm proud to tell you guys that I found a few cool things. So I want to go ahead and show you guys those kind of things that I pretty much collected over the few months that we've all had our Nintendo Switches. So I want to go ahead and do that next week along with the looking ahead, so that way I can give you guys something special. In lieu of the delays that have been going on recently. So, anywho, time for our MonHun Stories. Stories? So, anyway, if you guys are going through the blog and you guys had the chance to really look at the post already, you can see how quirky and corny our presentation was, or the chosen method of presentation. That we did for MonHun Stories. And the reason why we did that is because of the fact that the game itself is pretty quirky and corny. They like to throw puns around, they like to make fun of everything, and it's a very fun and light game, despite the fact that the story is kind of pretty heavy. Talk about redundancy right there. But yeah, it has a pretty serious, problem looming over the whole series, and friendships broken, new friendships, old friendships, stuff like that. And it's a pretty heavy game, and but surrounding that really dark center is a lot of fluff of fun. So it's a pretty quirky game, it's pretty fun, and I think just like The Witcher 3 sets a new golden standard for fantasy open world games, I think MonHun Stories could be the next golden standard for jRPG spin-offs. And I just wanted to warn you guys who've followed Monster Hunters for years, that this isn't the same kind of game that you're used to. It's not an action RPG, so that's definitely one thing to get out of the equation right away. It's a traditional turn-based RPG, pretty much in the respect of something like Pokemon, in that regard, where you kind of collect monsters and fight with them against other monsters. And it's pretty much turn-based, so it's slower and a little bit more strategic. And it also follows a simple rock, paper, scissors type mechanism when it comes to the battle. So don't expect to be jumping around with your insect glaive or shooting arrows from God knows where, hitting your teammates instead, that kind of thing. Because it's not exactly a real-time action game. So just want to let you guys know that right away if you haven't really looked into the game. So anyway, I'm pretty much assuming that the reason why you kept this game on your radar, and probably why you're here in the first place, is probably because you guys are hunters one way or another. You've touched Monster Hunter before, you've heard of Monster Hunter before, you know someone who plays Monster Hunter, or you are a hunter. So in that regard, it's, well, if you guys are not, it's cool too, so don't worry about it. So anyway, Monster Hunter's been around for a while. The PlayStation 2 started it all, and ever since its formula was made, a lot of developers tried to do something similar, and most of the time they don't usually get it right. and a lot of them are pretty much based off of Monster Hunter in that regard. Um, so for the ones that that have been with Monster Hunter for a while, you should know that it used to be very unforgiving. It's very nitty gritty. Gravity used to count a lot more, and everything killed you like really fast. Other than that, it was very vague. It didn't tell you really what to do. All you had to do was really kill monsters, find out how to get their parts, and make better gear from those parts that you got. So there's a lot of emphasis on the heaviness of physics in those games, and it changed over the years, and now we're doing all sorts of fancy things and jumping around and doing cool stuff a la anime. And Capcom decides to spice things up a little bit more by introducing us with Monster Hunter Stories. And the universe of MonHun is really vast, but and it's got a lot of lore to it, but a lot of the times it kind of falls through the cracks. We don't really get bathed in stories and of the lore. We're just given like a hub town, what we need to do about that hub town, a monster that's usually looming over the hub town, and we're supposed to go ahead and deal with it pretty much. The lore tends to be a short, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 sentence, synopsis of what each quest is all about, and chances are they're not really that relevant. Just gives us an idea of how things work in the universe. Lately, though, especially with the introduction of Tri, Third, Portable, which never came to North America, and especially 4, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate here, they've been starting to touch on the more story aspect of Monster Hunter, how the world works, how the guild operates, the other guilds that actually exist, or the other guild members that actually exist. It's not exactly just you and, your real world friends that kind of play with you. So there's an idea of, let's say, story building using NPCs. So recently they've been starting to do that, and with Monster Hunter Stories they ended up going even further down the line by actually giving us a whole game just dedicated for stories. And as much as the game doesn't really revolve around hunters, we kind of still get to see a glimpse of the world where the hunters like us, or the veterans that have been playing Monster Hunter ever since, we get to see the world that we've been playing in more depth than before. To be a little bit vague there, but you get to really see a glimpse of the world many of us have been living in for a while now. So what is this story? I keep saying story, but what does Monster Hunter story what's it all about? So pretty much you are a monster rider, and riders are hidden from the world pretty much, and they're raised to befriend and build bonds with their monster besties. Dumb, I know. Whatever. Otomon in Japanese, pretty much. Same idea. Tomo is like friend. Otomon. And anyway, it's another playing game with words. But anyway, they grow up finding new monsters to bond with, and then they utilize them for everyday life. The monsters live with them. They have their own little stable thing in the village, and apparently there are other villages that operate the same way with an elder. Typical, Monster Hunter village. You have an elder, and you have, the guild, or in this case the riders, that pretty much I guess act as a government in that regard, but in this case it's a little bit on the lighter side. I'm not sure if they were actually focusing on children when it came to this game because of how it's presented. But anyway, so pretty much these riders come across new monsters and form bonds with them. And the band of kids that you end up interacting with or you're really playing as, they come across a blight. And it's not the first time that it happened in their universe, and it threatens the world, and it emphasizes all sorts of different bonds. So the game really revolves around bonds, like their childhood friends, their parents or the lack thereof, their elders, their upperclassmen, their lowerclassmen, the hunters that find out who they are on their journey, those kind of things. And I mean, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Like, riders hidden in the mountains, nobody knows about them except themselves. They have to get out of their village, let themselves be known because of the blight that's come back. So they have to find a way to purify and, solve this problem. And if you guys are interested, there is an anime too. Capcom decided to go ahead and do an anime for this. And it loosely tells the same story at a different pace. But honestly, we're talking about games here, so play the game if you're interested. It's pretty fun for for a jRPG enthusiast. And at the time of this writing, the anime is not done yet, so there could be some changes to it in the end. So it could be two major different, directions. So I'll be talking about the game and the game alone from this point on. Well, the entire thing was the game anyway. So anywho, so that's the story, and that's the point of the story, and that's the purpose. And the purpose of the actual game is quite similar to its older cousin. You have to master the monster, pretty much speaking. But in typical Monster Hunter game, you master the monster by actually learning their movesets, learning their habitats, their movements, their cues, so that way you can stay alive for the most part, and gain more armor sets using their parts. This time we see mastering monsters in a different perspective. The whole idea of the game is to really have a party of monsters you can switch between and travel across, and journey across the land with them, and pretty much battle other monsters and save the land from the blight that that's corrupting the world. And each of them will have different skills and purposes. The most obvious one is the traversal skills. Like, say for example, in the very beginning, the first monster you ever get, not the Rathalos, but the Velocidrome, dos Rampos, the Velocidrome. The Velocidrome, or the drones in general, they are the jumpers. You can kind of jump from platform to platform and kind of get from ledge to ledge. They can climb certain areas and stuff like that. Later on, you'll have monsters that can actually fly, like the Rathalos, the Rathian, God, why am I brain farting? These are I'm so used to jumping between the English and the Japanese names. Now I'm like getting weird, I don't know, mental blocks with what they're called. The Baroth. There you go. The Barioth. I'm sorry, not the Baroth. Baroth it runs around and digs and stuff, but the Barioth, like the Rathian and the Rathalos and other monsters, so they can fly. And the reason why I bring these guys up is because you can actually get them through amiibos. So if you guys get your hands on the amiibos that released in Japan, I'm not sure if they're coming out here yet, but they work for the English version as well. So anyway, battles are, like I said a while ago, they kind of follow a rock, paper, scissors type of system where you kind of choose between power, speed, and technical attacks. They go in a cycle, so one is weak to another, and they follow a rotational cycle. So skills and items are still present all around, so you can still, it's pretty much a traditional jRPG, but to me the beauty really shines from those that are actually familiar with the franchise. The reason why is the novelty of the game is how it's really a Monster Hunter game, even though it's not at all. I know how vague that sounds and super confusing that sounds, but let me elaborate. Um, Monster Hunter Stories, it can stand on its own 2 feet, whether you're a veteran hunter or a newcomer to the series. But really, what makes it so much more memorable to us vets are the things that make it feel so familiar to the franchise, even when it's totally a different game in general. The monsters, of course, are the biggest giveaway. Instead of fighting their dangerous counterparts, we tame and befriend them. Well, we find their eggs and hatch them, and each of them presents with a different overworld skill, like I mentioned a while ago. And what's it called? Oh yeah, I forgot. I mentioned a while ago that some of them can fly, some of them can jump around. Some is a speed kind of monster, some is a heavy hitter. If you do have the amiibos, make sure to keep the Dance Kuropeko with you, because he's gonna be, or he or she, it would be your very first healer, because he has that trumpet where he can heal himself. If you guys have played the game, the actual Monster Hunter action game, it's annoying how he can heal himself, and you kind of just want to break that sack of his on his neck. But anyway, or his beak. But anyway, in this case, he's handy because once in a while he does use that same trumpet, and he ends up getting healing out there for the party. So there's a lot of skills to work with, and they're all nice throwbacks to the ones that we hunt down that are really deadly, that kill you in a few swipes if you're not prepared. Armor and weapon crafting make a return, and so you can really create gear from the parts of monsters that you hunt and slay. Same concept with Monster Hunter Stories, but with less depth, I think. It's not as focal as the flagship series. It's just there to really amplify the experience, like to just say that it's actually there. But at the same time, at least you can say for yourself that, yeah, I really want to have a Zinogre armor, a Stygian Zinogre armor. I'm going to go ahead and get myself that Black Wolf armor set. So yeah, screw you guys. You know what I mean? So you can actually still do that. You're not stuck to a preset appearance. So, talking about appearance as well, there is character customization, so you don't have to really stick with the default loot. So if you guys have touched the anime already, that's not exactly what loot should look like. You can change the whole appearance, male, female, hairstyle, eyes, mouth. It's pretty basic, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of variety. And the general appearance of your character is shown across the entire game. So don't let the anime really, train you towards that idea that, it has to be loot, this is canon. Sure, you could do that, makes things easier, but you can still name him Loot and just change his appearance. So there's that option too. So back to the novelty of the franchise. Anyway, the items are present there too, but they do different things. So if you've touched the Monster Hunter game before, mega potions are there, herbs are there, blue mushrooms are there, binoculars are there, paintballs, herb horns, whatever, you name it. Excuse me. But they all make a comeback to the game, but they have more of an RPG purpose to them. So, for example, binoculars. It works as if you were trying to identify a monster instead of, like in the game, you can look far. You know what I mean? You can kind of like spy on a monster that's far away. In Monster Hunter Stories, binoculars are a way to identify a monster. So it pretty much works as if you guys are familiar with Final Fantasy, it works as if it was a Libra spell. Libra. Apparently it's Libra. But anyway, the typical items are there. They're just altered a little bit just to give them purpose in RPG form. So that's how they kind of mix things up a bit. So another small thing to really add to this is the house. The house that you're given is laid out exactly the same as like any other Monster Hunter game. There's an item box, there's a cat or a helper, whatever. At least in the more recent ones, okay? The previous ones, it was always just you, Poogie, a bed, and the item box. So anyway, It's actually set up pretty similarly to what's it called, to Burn a Village. The bed is on the right side, the item box is on the left side, and you have a cat attendant somewhere there. This one, think about it as more a squished, cartoony version of that whole thing. And you even get a Velocidrome stuffed toy in the bed. Makes you realize, right, that the players that you're playing as are really kids, you know. So the item box has the same kind of concept to it. You get to change a lot of things that are present there. Primarily just appearance, though. You get to keep your weapons with you. You can go ahead and switch that out anytime. Equipment as well. But for the most part, the item box is there for your general appearance. Color changing color schemes, hairstyles, and Naviru's armor. So you can actually dress up your cat, and his name is Naviru, and he kind of gets on your nerves, and kind of reminds me of the second coming of Navi, therefore named right after Navi is Naviru. But anyway, he's got a big part to play in the story, so watch out, don't underestimate that kid. Anyway, so, you know, with all these novelties and quirks aside, you know, it's pretty similar to its older cousin, but ultimately, if you're really not a fan of slow-paced planning and strategy and monster collecting that, you know, traditional JRPGs are known for, then this might not be the game for you. So if I were you, try to get one pre-owned, try to see if you get there. Cool thing about it is the demo is available on the eShop. So you can download that, and you can actually start the entire game in the first region. So if you like it, you go ahead and, you know, and buy unlock the full version. You actually carry over all the progress that you've made. So the demo's out there. You know, Capcom made it accessible to you guys because they figured, you know, these people that are coming from Monster Hunter, some people might not know anything but Monster Hunter. So they might feel like they've been misled into getting a game that's labeled Monster Hunter but isn't Monster Hunter. So, you know, they gave you guys no excuse to lash back at them. So give it a try. The demo's out there if you haven't if you've never heard of this game and you've only played Monster Hunter the way it's been presented for all these years. So that's one way to enjoy the game. And like I said, your save in the demo carries over. So that's a big plus. Now, if you're a hunter who loves the franchise and, you know, like me, have delved into JRPGs before the era of action games came to be, you're in for a ride. You're in for a ride with Monster Hunter Stories. And I say that because as an avid hunter, I really enjoy the perks of actually seeing it in a different package. You know, it's not an action game, it's a JRPG. And I grew up playing these games. Final Fantasy, Breath of Fire, Xenogears, you know, I grew up with all of these games. So coming to see a Monster Hunter game that I've been playing for so long, back to traditional roots, is nice to see. So in my opinion, if, you know, that's something that you guys are into and you're okay with JRPGs and you know what you're getting yourself into, I think you guys are going to enjoy Monster Hunter Stories. But if you guys do not know anything except for Monster Hunter and did not grow up with JRPGs, it's still a good game to check out, but be careful. I'm warning you guys, check it out first. Check out the beta, the demo, and kind of figure out if that's if that's your cup of tea. Because action and turn-based strategy, they're very different. You know, you either like it or you don't like it. So it's one or the other. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about Monster Hunter Stories. If you guys touched it, if you guys went ahead and got it day one, if you've been following it for so long, what you guys think about it, yeah, chime in with your thoughts, because the next time we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter game is with World, and that comes out early next year. And in regards to World, are you guys excited for that? Have you guys pre-ordered from your local retailers, which is pretty much GameStop, who holds the collector's edition here in the US? Are you getting the collector's edition? Are you guys importing the Japanese PS4 Pro that looks so bomb? I want a Rathalos PS4 Pro. If you're not getting it on the PS4, excuse me, I'm getting gassy today. If you're not playing on the PS4, what console are you guys getting it for? PC, Xbox? I'm pretty much getting it for all the consoles just because I have a lot of friends that do enjoy the game on different, to enjoy two game on different platforms. So I have people to play with on PC, I have people to play with on Xbox, and I have people to play with on PS4. But primarily, I think I'm going to focus on the PS4 and or the PC for the most part, since those are the most prevalent platforms that my circle usually plays on. So anywho, those are the questions to ask, and so like always, stay tuned for next week and chime in where it counts. All right, have a good night. See you guys.